I never planned for things to happen the way they did. I always thought I was the kind of girl who followed rules, walked in the right path, and waited for the perfect time. I had dreams for myself. I had plans for my future. And one of those plans was to remain pure until my wedding day. I held on to that plan tightly, but life has a way of shaking your hands until the things you hold fall out. I grew up in a Christian home. My parents were strict but loving. They raised me with discipline, respect, and fear of God. My mother often told me, "Evelyn, your purity is your pride. Keep it for the right man and the right time." I listened. I believed. For a long time, I lived by that principle without trouble. It wasn't hard, because I never had a boyfriend until I met Daniel. Daniel came into my life like a gentle wind that slowly becomes strong before you even realize it. I met him at a friend's birthday party. I didn't plan to go, because I am the kind of person who prefers staying at home, but my friend begged me. She said I needed to socialize more. So I went. The moment I walked into the party, I noticed him. Not because he was the most handsome man in the room, but because of the way he carried himself. Quiet, calculated, observant. While others were shouting and laughing loudly, he sat quietly at a corner, sipping a drink and watching people like he was trying to understand them. For some strange reason, I kept looking at him from time to time. And every time I looked, I found him looking back at me. At first it made me uncomfortable, but later, I found it interesting. 1 hour into the party, I stepped out to get some fresh air. The noise was too much inside. As I stood there in the cool evening breeze, someone walked over to me. It was him. He smiled gently and said, "Hi. You look like you needed fresh air too." I remember laughing lightly. Something about his voice was soft but deep, calm but strong. That night, we spoke for almost an hour. He told me his name was Daniel, and he worked as a graphic designer. He wasn't overly talkative. In fact, I think I spoke more than he did. But the way he listened made me feel like every word I said was important. That was how everything started. After that night, Daniel and I became closer. We talked every day. At first, it was just friendly conversations, but I slowly began to look forward to his messages. When he didn't call for a few hours, I felt something was missing. It didn't take long before he asked me to be his girlfriend. I remember blushing like a child. I said yes. From the beginning, we agreed on something important: no intimacy before marriage. I told him clearly that I wanted to wait, and he respected it. Or at least, I believed he did. 4 months, we kept to that promise. Even when emotions ran high, Daniel always pulled away and reminded me of our decision. I loved him even more for that. Over time, our relationship grew stronger. He became my safe space, my confidant, my friend. We dreamt of marriage. We spoke about building a home together, raising kids, traveling, and making memories. I believed I had found my future husband. But it was on one quiet night that everything changed. That day had been long and stressful. I had just finished a major project at work, and I came home exhausted. My body felt heavy, and my mind felt full. Daniel came over to see me that evening. We cooked together, laughed together, and talked about random things. Nothing unusual, nothing strange. It felt like any normal evening. By 10 p.m., I couldn't keep my eyes open. Daniel noticed and said I should sleep. I didn't want him to go home late, so I asked him to spend the night in the guest room, which wasn't unusual. He had slept over many times, but we always kept separate rooms. It felt safe. It felt right. I remember falling asleep quickly. My body needed the rest. But around 2 a.m., I felt someone gently touching my shoulder. At first, I thought I was dreaming. But then I heard his voice. "Evelyn," Daniel whispered. "Are you awake?" I slowly opened my eyes. The room was dark except for a faint light from the window. I could barely see his face, but I recognized his silhouette immediately. "Daniel?" I asked softly. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he sat down beside me on the bed. I could feel the weight shift. My heart suddenly started beating faster. There was something different in his presence that night, something calm, but emotional. I couldn't sleep, he finally said. I kept thinking about you. I looked at him carefully. His breathing was slightly heavy. His voice was deeper than usual. And his hand gently held mine. Daniel, I whispered, what is it? He leaned closer, and I could feel his warm breath on my neck. For a moment, my whole body froze. Not out of fear, but out of confusion. That night, something in him was different. Something in me was too. The room felt too quiet. The darkness felt too soft. And the air felt too heavy. Then he asked me, in a soft but trembling voice, Evelyn, can I hold you tonight? His words hit me like a wave. Not because they were strange, but because I felt them deeply. I knew exactly what he meant. I knew he was asking for more than just holding. For a moment, everything inside me battled, my beliefs, my promises, my emotions, my love. I should have said no. I should have reminded him of our promise. I should have told him to go back to the guest room. But I didn't. Instead, I looked into his eyes in the dim light. And something inside me melted. That night, my heart answered faster than my mind. Yes, I whispered. The moment the word left my mouth, I felt a strange mixture of peace and fear. I knew nothing would remain the same after that night. I knew I was crossing a line I had drawn for years. But I also knew that I loved Daniel deeply. What happened afterward was not wild or careless. It was slow, emotional, quiet. Not the way movies show it. It was the way two people who love each other deeply try to hold their hearts together. And in the silence of that night, our promise broke. The next morning, when I woke up, Daniel was watching me. His eyes were soft but filled with worry. Evelyn, he whispered, I'm sorry. I should have been stronger. I didn't plan for last night to happen. I held his hand and shook my head. I said yes, Daniel. You didn't force me. I made a choice too. He looked at me with guilt, but also with love. We both knew we had stepped into a new chapter, and we promised each other that what happened would bring us closer, not farther apart. For a few weeks, life continued normally. At least, that's what I thought. But one morning, I woke up feeling strange. My stomach felt heavy, and my body felt tired. I thought maybe I had eaten something bad. But after 2 weeks of feeling the same way, I became scared. I remember standing in front of the bathroom mirror, staring at my reflection. My skin looked different. My body felt different. Something in me whispered a truth I didn't want to believe. I bought a pregnancy test. I hid it inside my bag like it was something dangerous. And that evening, when Daniel was around, I locked myself in the bathroom and took the test. It didn't take long. In less than 1 minute, 2 strong lines appeared. Positive. I felt my knees weaken. Tears filled my eyes. Not because I was angry, no. Not because I felt regret, no. But because I was overwhelmed. Afraid. Confused. And unsure of what the future would hold. I slowly opened the bathroom door. Daniel looked up at me. One look at my face and he knew something was wrong. What is it? He asked, standing up quickly. I couldn't speak. I simply handed him the test. He looked at it, then looked at me again. His face went pale for a moment, then soft. He walked to me and held me tightly. Evelyn, he whispered, we will face this together. I cried in his arms. But somewhere in my tears, I also felt a quiet peace. Because deep down, I knew Daniel wasn't the kind of man to run away. I knew he loved me. The next morning, Daniel didn't even wait for me to gather the courage to tell my parents. He looked me in the eye, held both my hands firmly, and said, Evelyn, this is my responsibility too. I will not let you face it alone. There was no fear in his voice, only conviction. And for the first time since the test turned positive, I felt my heart settle a little. By afternoon, he was already dressed neatly, calmer than I expected. I, on the other hand, could barely breathe. As we approached my parents' house, every step felt like walking toward a storm. My mind replayed memories of my mother's warnings, my father's quiet strength, and the purity they had raised me to protect. When we entered the sitting room, my mother was peeling vegetables while my father read the newspaper. The moment they saw our faces, Everything in the room stilled. Daniel greeted them with respect, bowed slightly, and asked if we could talk. My father folded his newspaper slowly, his expression unreadable. My mother's hands froze mid-air. Then Daniel did something that shocked me. He went down on his knees. "Mama." "Papa," he said, voice steady but full of emotion. "I have wronged you. I have wronged Evelyn. And I take full responsibility." My mother's lips parted in disbelief. My father simply stared at him, eyes sharp, as if he was looking through Daniel's soul. Daniel continued, "I love your daughter. Truly. And we made a mistake. But I am here today because I refuse to run. I want to make things right. I want to marry her, with your blessing." Silence swallowed the room. My mother suddenly began to cry, soft at first, then uncontrollably. The sound broke my heart. She kept repeating, "Evelyn, why? Why didn't you come to me?" I cried too. Daniel held my hand tightly, refusing to let me go. My father stood up, paced slowly, and then stopped right in front of Daniel. For a moment, I was terrified he would ask him to leave. But instead, he placed a firm hand on Daniel's shoulder. "Young man," my father said, his voice low but steady, "mistakes happen. What matters is what you do after. If you truly want to take responsibility, then stand up and be the man you say you are." Daniel rose to his feet. My father nodded and added, "Both of you must make this right." It wasn't an instant forgiveness, but it was the beginning of grace. The weeks that followed were a mixture of fear, planning, and unexpected peace. We had a small wedding, no loud music, no grand decorations, no glamorous hall. Just family, a few close friends, and a quiet atmosphere filled with sincerity. I still remember standing beside Daniel at the altar. His hands were warm, steady, and reassuring. As the pastor spoke, I glanced at him, this man who had walked into my life quietly, loved me gently, and now stood beside me ready to build a future. I felt my heart melt completely. Our marriage, however, was not a fairy tale. We were young. We were still discovering each other's flaws, habits, fears, and differences. Some days we argued over silly things. Some nights we slept facing opposite directions. Other times, we held each other tightly after long, exhausting days. But through everything, love guided us. Respect kept us grounded. And the tiny life growing inside me reminded us daily that we were building something bigger than ourselves. When our daughter was born, everything changed. The moment the nurse placed her in Daniel's arms, he froze. Then, slowly, tears streamed down his face, quiet tears he didn't bother to wipe away. I had never seen him cry before, not even during our toughest moments. He looked at our baby like she was the most precious thing on earth. He kissed her forehead gently and whispered, "You changed everything." In that moment, I realized something powerful. Mistakes don't always destroy us. Sometimes, they guide us to the exact place we need to be, humbled, wiser, and full of appreciation for things we once took for granted. Looking back now, I don't regret saying yes that night. Maybe it wasn't planned. Maybe it broke boundaries I had set for myself. But it led me into a journey filled with love, growth, forgiveness, and purpose. It taught me that life is not a straight line. It bends, twists, and sometimes breaks us, only to rebuild us into something stronger. Sometimes the things we fear become the things that shape us the most. And that night, the night Daniel woke me up, and I said yes, didn't ruin me. It became the night my whole life truly began.